Okay, I've got a question for you. How can a game be the best-selling game of the year so far, and the 4th highest rated game of the year critically, and also sit at 15% positive reviews in Steam? That's a goofy situation, and it's happening to Monster Hunter Wilds, which in a way is a paradox, because by any normal measure, it's a Game of the Year contender. Just, not by a little metric called player satisfaction. So it's bizarre, and it does paint a bit of a picture for the future, because here's what's going on. The PC gaming audience is more and more important. We actually make up so many sales that we cannot be ignored. But you guys know how it's been, right? For years and years and years, we get shitty ports, a lot of bullshit, publishers just don't take us seriously. But now what's changed is they have to take us seriously, because we're worth a shitload of money. I've also got something to tell you about. Traveling to the US for Epic Universe's opening was awesome, but it did mean dealing with something that's not fun, and that's roaming charges. Just that this time I didn't have to deal with them because of today's sponsor, Saily, who saved me a fortune. They are an eSIM provider from the creators of NordVPN, and they give you local data rates without the hassle of physical SIM cards. It is so easy. You just download the app, you pick your destination from over 200 countries, choose a data plan, and that's basically it. You'll be connected to the internet the moment you land. You won't be paying stupid roaming rates or any of that stuff. And also it means no more hunting around for SIM vendors at airports, no keeping track of tiny cards or getting scammed by dodgy stuff. It just works. It's so instant, it's so quick. And in my example, I just went with a USA plan, which was significantly cheaper than what my carrier wanted for roaming. And the setup literally took like 3 minutes. You just install the eSIM once and there you go. It works globally. And if you're planning to hit multiple countries, you can get a regional plan and save even more money. And of course, you keep your regular number for calls and text while you're then using Saily for data. Plus, they've also got built-in security features for safer browsing when you're away. So basically, it's awesome. And right now at Saily.com/BellularNews, you'll be getting a exclusive 15% off with code BellularNews. And all you need to do is download the Saily app or just head to Saily.com/BellularNews. Okay, last time we talked about Monster Hunter Wilds, it was of Capcom's gamble paying off. And look, it did pay off. But a month has passed since then, and over that month, a lot of sentiment has changed. Now, so you understand, here's the situation. Monster Hunter Wilds had to deliver just over half of Capcom's yearly revenue target. Now, that obviously was a pretty tall order, but it did end up succeeding. Not only that, it actually vastly surpassed its targets. Now, at the launch, right, more than half of US sales were on Steam. And that kind of means that without the simultaneous PC and console release, this game would not have succeeded the same way, certainly not financially. Now, over on console, it's a success, but on PC, the launch was really shit. The performance issues did make things messy, and that does kind of make sense. I mean, think about it. If you're optimizing for only 2 consoles, that is relatively straightforward compared to getting consistent performance across every PC build that is possible. It's not an impossible task. Loads of companies have well-optimized games in PC, but it requires effort, investment, and time. Now here's the thing, Capcom did not have time. They needed this game to be out for long enough to hit their financial year targets. So the ideal world where console release would happen and then PC would come out when it's ready, when it's a good product worthy of being sold. That obviously didn't happen. It couldn't happen. And the reason why is Capcom's financial targets. Now obviously, they did set them for themselves. But here's the thing. They basically have had a story of 10 years of 10% growth a year. And if memory serves, if they didn't hit it this year, they would have broken like a 10-year streak. That would have been real bad for their investor narrative and all that stuff that big companies do actually care about. So essentially, it was a classic example of misaligned incentives. Their incentives were not aligned with ours. That was always going to come to a head in the long run, and now, thankfully, that has actually happened. Take a look at this graph. It's kind of lovely. We see a very clear trend where at launch, there's a 60-40 split, and that stays proportionally 60 to 70% positive as the updates and fixes roll out. But then, as May ends, clearly something changes. So here's how we get there. April's first big title update added a new monster, new endgame features, updates to the social hub area, and some other minor things. Then, May's end brought the Street Fighter collaboration complete with Akuma's weapon. So basically, content was coming, but the core game, the thing that people really cared about, was not changing. Then the month of June hits, and that is when the real shift happens. And man, what a shift it is. There's over 11,000 user reviews in the last 30 days, of which only 15% are positive. The vast majority are negative, and people are rightly pissed. There's a few reasons why. I'll summarize them. So first up, Capcom took a harsher line in mods in early June where they suspended players who were using mods to access gear and cosmetics that were not yet released to the public. Which, is understandable, but it's really not like Capcom were sort of, standing on firm ground with this game. So yes, that pissed off some people. Second then, a bug with shader compilation caused CPU load to spike big time during gameplay, and Capcom's response was to, just tell players to manually delete shader files until the next patch. Which is a solution, but it's not really a fix, and it's just frustrating. And then third, it's less something that Capcom did, and it's more just the situation of this game becoming obvious, because by now, so few people remained compared to what you would have expected. Prior Monster Hunter games had more players, and you basically see that per the Steam charts, only the most dedicated people are left. And through all of this time, negative reviews about performance kept on coming. And again, justifiably, rightly so. The next big update then is the announcement of Title Update 2 on the 10th of June, and it's promising a release by the end of June. And basically, there will be more endgame monster tiers, quality of life and balance changes, and performance improvements, especially on the Steam version. That means changes to VRAM usage to limit crashes, promises of enhanced texture streaming, and other things that are nice. But there is a problem. I mean, if those were enough to make people happy, you would have seen it in the Steam reviews, but we don't. And that's because these just weren't fixes in the truest sense, at least in the audience's mind. Essentially, more content and some nice but not super core fixes happening in the context of deep underlying problems within the game that are not being fixed. And what this led to is a classic snowball, because once the negatives started to outweigh the positives to a sort of critical mass, it just snowballed. People decided to hop in and leave negative reviews because by now it was obvious to everyone that Capcom had dropped the ball and that there was no way they'd be able to just brush that shitty launch under the rug and have us all forget. Oh no, people remember. Alright, PC audiences, we are used to being heard. Steam's a big platform, it's got reviews, and those tools are often something that drives change. Because if changes don't happen, negative reviews in theory should slow down sales. At least in theory. It often does work, it can kill an indie game, but if you take a look at Call of Duty, well, sometimes, negative reviews will not change a developer's mind. In this case though, let's talk about Wilds and break the criticism into two camps. There's artistic and there's technical. And Wilds has got both. As for artistic problems, sometimes those do or do not get updates. Maybe a dev has got a different vision from a player. An example of that changing though is say Helldivers 2. Essentially, the devs really wanted a harder rock paper scissors with weapon balancing, players just wanted more of a fun power fantasy, and ultimately the devs decided to agree with the players, and it did end up working out. So this is a game that does have that type of artistic, of design criticism. But then there's the technical, and that's where Capcom honestly are fucked in how they've dealt with things. Now, obviously, PC is hard. We've all heard the meme of, works in my machine. But here's the reality of things with this game. Hundreds of QA staff before launch looked at this. But then, well, that turned into thousands and thousands and thousands of players with loads of different configurations. That is exponentially more, and players are good at finding problems. But as PC gamers, we do appreciate that PC is harder than consoles, so launch issues, if they're dealt with promptly, I think can be broadly accepted by people, but only if they are dealt with promptly. That's not happened. It's only got worse over time. We're nearly 4 months post-launch. We're past at least one paid DLC. And what's happening in this front? Capcom is still recommending that users delete files manually to fix shader compilation. The impression is that Capcom do not care, that they got their money from a messy launch to hit their big financial goal, and that now they don't give a shit. And the ultimate endpoint of that is accusations of it being a dead game. Now the funny thing is, as much as that narrative has set in, and there's a lot of truth in it, if you go and look on Steam, you do actually see Capcom are literally discussing Steam-specific fixes in patch notes and in dev diaries. But that's obviously not working. That's not solving the broader issue, and what's far worse is that this is beginning to look like a pattern. Multiple reviews call out poor performance compared to Monster Hunter World of course, 2018. Do you know what's funny? That game actually launched with mostly negative reviews in Steam. Not a 60-40 split, mostly negative. But then what happened? Well, it immediately rallied. It now has got near universally positive reviews, and that all followed as Capcom fixed up the PC port, and they brought the game in line with console. And for a while, it looked like a genuine Capcom redemption. They had good PC ports, good performance. But then Dragon's Dogma 2 happened. That was in March 2024. It had heaps and heaps of problems, and one of the most egregious, the town performance stuff. The fixes didn't arrive until June, which was 3 months later. Wider performance fixes then came in September, which was 6 months after launch. That's insane. And there's been no changes since. And that does mean the cries of "this has been abandoned by the devs" are actually not hyperbole. Does actually ring out, does make sense. And the general understanding then is that without hardware from recent years, you'll just have a shit time. And one that you shouldn't really have. The idea basically being that if it wasn't for NVIDIA frame generation making up for these shitty launches and, evidently devs and publishers not treating things with the respect that they should be treated with, that we'd just be screwed. But hey, Jensen is here with his frame gen and we're all safe. Which is a grim reality for us to be in, where now we're trying to pad our frame rates with fake frames. Anyway, people basically can look at this and see the same pattern with Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, many people are blaming the RE engine because it's, sort of connective tissue between all of these things. Essentially, the theory is that only Capcom's open world games have got these sorts of problems. And I think that's fairly logical based on the evidence. But as long as you ignore one thing. The games run fine on console comparatively, which basically means that it's likely PC-specific optimization stuff. The sort of thing where you need more time, more resources, more energy. And oh, boo-hoo, poor Capcom, who got over 50% of their American sales from the Steam version. By now, it is simply an undeniable pattern of behavior from this publisher, and of course, you then look at, say, Resident Evil Requiem and think, oh, well, it'll probably be like what has came before. A bit shit. All of this has happened before, all of this will happen again. Once upon a time, back in the 2010s, Capcom had a reputation, one of incredibly shoddy PC ports. But they overcame that. They did good, and now PC releases are making up more than half of their sales, at least that stat in America for one of their most successful games ever. And they earned that. They earned those sales by putting out great games that people enjoy. That's why over 1 million people have wishlisted Resident Evil Requiem across all the different platforms. It's now the 29th most wishlisted game in Steam 8 months before launch. But that's also why people worry. Think about it. Capcom gets that much Steam traction, even in spite of their last 2 releases being just disrespectful shit shows, both not only having rough launches, but also bad post-launch support for the PC platform. And that means it feels like they are taking PC for granted. They want the money, but they don't seem to want to do the work that deserves, that earns that money. And that's what these reviews are really about. It goes deeper than just this one game. Whenever I said that Capcom pulled a dirty trick, well, I think that's been proven pretty right as times went on. Capcom, it feels like you'll happily benefit from us, but that you're not willing to actually invest in our concerns and actually treat us with the respect that I think a customer deserves. And I have a perfect contrast, the ultimate way that you actually know the audience matters. PlayStation basically scared themselves shitless whenever Concord went the way that it did. Because of that, they've changed a hell of a lot. So ultimately, money, our money, talks. Whenever people don't show up, these companies are forced to change. It is not happening with Capcom thus far. Maybe it will in the future, and if you want to see how it impacted Sony, watch this video next.
Hey, Vsauce, Michael here. Gravity is a property of matter, anything with mass. This includes the moon, Earth, Jupiter, the sun, and even you, your body. In fact, if you kind of like somebody, have them stand 3/4 of a millimeter away from you. At that distance, cumulatively, every atom in your body and every atom in their body will draw you two together with the same gravitational force that the sun is exerting on you right now. Of course, we don't feel either of those forces because compared to the gravitational influence of the Earth, they are basically nothing. You don't need to concern yourself with the gravitational attraction between you and someone you're hugging, or your individual body and the sun 150 million kilometers away. In fact, the sun may as well not exist. What if the sun disappeared? Well, to be sure, it's not going to happen. The sun will die billions of years from now by expanding, boiling off our oceans, and swallowing the Earth whole. The sun is not going to simply disappear. Matter and energy don't vanish. Of course, matter can quantum tunnel to different locations, but on the scale of the sun, there is not enough time in the lifetime of millions and billions of universes for such a probability to even be worth discussing. But let's discuss it anyway, as a thought experiment, to determine how the Earth would get along with no sun. What will the Earth do and what can it do alone? At the exact moment that the sun disappeared, we would have no idea, because it takes light from the sun 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach Earth. So for a little over 8 minutes after the sun disappeared, we would have no idea. Once we did, confusion and mass panic would most likely ensue. The sun's gravitational grasp on our planet would also take 8 minutes and 20 seconds to end. This is because gravity waves propagate at the speed of light. So, the very moment we saw our sun disappear, we would also lose its gravitational influence, and Earth would fly out in a straight line tangent to wherever it was in its orbit. The finite speed of light and gravity mean that as panic and fear spread across the Earth at the loss of our sun, we could still, for a while, look up into the sky and see our planetary buddies further out, continuing to operate as if nothing had happened. For instance, Jupiter would continue orbiting and reflecting light from a sun that no longer existed for about 30 minutes after Earth already knew the sun was gone. And depending on where Jupiter was in its orbit, it would take another 30 minutes to an hour for us to watch the reflected light of Jupiter snuff out. With no moonlight or sunlight, the universe itself would be our only source of visible light from space. In 2004, Abdul Ahad calculated that the Milky Way contributes about as much light as 1/300th of a full moon. So there would be enough light from space for us to see around a bit. But of course, electricity and fossil fuels would still be usable for a while, so cities and towns could continue to be lit by man-made sources, just like a typical night. Except it would be night everywhere. Photosynthesis would stop immediately, and this is huge. I had a great discussion about this video with Henry from Minute Physics and the new channel, Minute Earth. If you're not subscribed to Minute Earth, you definitely should be. In one of his episodes there, he mentions that 99.9% of the natural productivity on Earth is done by photosynthesis, which requires the sun. Without the sun, plants would no longer be able to inhale carbon dioxide and exhale life-sustaining oxygen. But don't worry. Collectively, all of us humans, all 7 billion of us, breathe in about 6 trillion kilos of oxygen every year. But our atmosphere contains a whopping quintillion kilos of oxygen. So even without photosynthesis, and including all of the other animals and insects and microorganisms that consume oxygen, it would take us thousands of years to run out. The poor plants themselves would be much worse off. Without the sun, most of them would die within days or weeks. Except for large plants. Giant trees, for instance, contain enough sugar for energy that they could technically live in the dark for years. Their problem is going to be that the Earth will get quite cold. In fact, mighty trees would freeze to death, their blood, the water and sap inside them solidifying, way before they died of starvation. Right now, with our sun, the average surface temperature on Earth, hot places and cold places in different seasons all considered, is an arguably comfortable 14 to 15 degrees Celsius. Without the sun to add energy, the Earth would radiate away heat exponentially, meaning it would go fast at first and then happen more and more slowly. By the end of the first week without the sun, the average surface temperature across Earth would be freezing, 0 Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, temperatures like this happen all the time on Earth. We're used to it. Panic and fear and looters and anarchy aside, for the first few days or months, we could get by. But by the end of the first year without the sun, the average global surface temperature would be negative 73 degrees Celsius, negative 100 Fahrenheit. The best option, really, would be to move to geothermal areas like Yellowstone or Iceland. These places would be the few safe havens for human life after the sun. Nearly all life on Earth exists because of and is dependent upon extraterrestrial energy, the sun. But the Earth produces its own heat. Despite floating in the coldness of space for billions of years, down below the crust, the Earth is quite warm. 20% of this warmth came from the fact that when the Earth formed, mass crushed so tightly in the middle that the pressure liquefied rock. The other 80% of Earth's internal heat comes from the fact that deep in its core, radioactive elements decay, providing the energy needed to keep the Earth's core at 5,000 degrees Celsius. Anyone who failed to secure a position within one of these bastions of warmth, or perhaps underground in a community warmed and powered by nuclear fuel, would likely be dead within the first year of no sun. In the next 10 or 20 years, things would start to get wet with dew. But not with glorious water droplets, instead, droplets of liquid air. The air would literally become cold enough for the gases that make it up to condense, or form clouds and precipitate, first as rain, and then as it got colder and colder, eventually as snow. In Fritz Leiber's famous science fiction short story, A Pail of Air, this has already happened. The Earth was ripped away from the sun, and in order to survive, a family must go outdoors in a special suit and scoop up a pail of just the oxygen snow, bring it back in, and place it over a fire to warm and allow them to breathe. A year or so after the sun disappeared, Earth's oceans will have frozen over, ice all the way across. But ice is less dense than liquid water, which means that ice floats. And ice is a pretty decent insulator. So, for billions of years after the sun disappeared, liquid water could still exist at the bottom of our oceans, protected and insulated from space by miles of ice above it, and warmed by vents on the ocean floor that spew water out, superheated by Earth's interior. This would continue on Earth for a very, very long time, sun or no sun. Instead of becoming frozen and lifeless, extremophiles, like microbes that live around hydrothermal vents deep in the ocean, would be fine. They live deep in the ocean, far below the point where sunlight can penetrate, and they make energy not through photosynthesis, but via chemosynthesis, converting heat and methane and sulfur into the energy they need. They are then eaten by clams and tube worms. Extremophiles deposit minerals back into the vents, meaning that their food chain is complete. It's a circle. It's independent of the sun. Earthlings like them would thrive if the sun were to disappear. They would live just fine without ever knowing that the sun was gone, or honestly, without ever even knowing it existed in the first place. It's amazing to think that life here on Earth, all alone, flying through space with no sun, would kind of be fine. Far from becoming a frozen dead rock or a boring dormant seed, the Earth would be a spaceship carrying living passengers with enough geothermal heat for billions of years of life. If the sun disappeared, spaceship Earth would fly out in a straight line, covering about 30 kilometers every single second. After just 1 billion years, it will have covered 900 quadrillion kilometers, or about 100,000 light years, a trip that could potentially take it all the way across our galaxy, near thousands of stars, and nothing's to say it couldn't fall into orbit around one, thaw out, and allow its still living extremophiles to proliferate life on Earth all over again. Maybe one day developing life intelligent enough to uncover whatever is left of our lives. Maybe they could even find this very video. In which case, hi, you're welcome for this video about your planet's history and journey. And as always, thanks for watching.
Are you ever going to get back into WoW, or is it a lost cause? Dude, I've been watching these clips. Everybody is talking about this fucking cinematic, bro. They're absolutely, like, this cinematic is making World of Warcraft go absolutely viral in the year 2025. You thought it wouldn't happen? I'm gonna be honest, neither did I. But here we are. And so let's take a look and watch this cinematic. This is the cinematic. Yep, guys, get ready. You ready? No, you're not. Let's watch it.
Stop this! Do not vote to save all of Azeroth. He sold us out so the Alliance and Horde could wage war in Kazalgar.
So why was it there? But then here it's there.
Sold us out so the Alliance and Horde could wage war in Kazalgar.
Yeah.
You'll never understand.
You'll never understand me. Damn. Damn. Shield
The
slam.
Red Dawn will rise again.
No! Do not make her a martyr.
Oh, Baldy coming in.
Our history will read. Faerun,
This is real, guys.
true
This
daughter
isn't.
of the Arathi,
This is real.
allowed Merrin to live without her title and name. The Red Dawn vanished from the Highlands forever.
This
Do you remember whenever the game was cool and instead of people wearing glasses, they just wore a blindfold and they could sense the demonic energy around them? And that allowed them to have a daredevil level of awareness that actually gave them a insight that was greater than what they had originally begun with. Same with Drekthar the Farseer. Yeah, and now we have this fucking lame ass. Bro, you've got these girls wearing fucking hipster glasses in World of Warcraft. What kind of cringe bullshit is this? This is so pathetic. Oh my god. This is Reddit content. I can't even believe this.
is not over.
Oh my god. Who the fuck wants to see this? Yeah, and so that's by the way, that's the cinematic. That's the whole thing, guys. There it is. That was it. And so this video right here has, believe it or not, 3 million views. This is the most attention World of Warcraft has gotten. It's probably since they got caught stealing breast milk. So let's go take a look, and we're going to look at some of the engagements here and the things that people are saying, because obviously a lot of people are pretty opinionated about this. And then, oh yeah, this is the way, guys. And keep in mind, this was during Battle for Azeroth. This wasn't even during the Golden Ages. This was just during BFA. Oh shit, and there it is, guys. That's the way of the world. Yep, what the happened to the game I love? What the fuck? Can we go back to storylines about genociding other races for fun? This gay Tumblr writing is so overdone. World of Warcraft is such a good IP that gets ruined year after year by self-fucking-hating people. Yes, exactly. A retarded monkey could do a better job. A blind retarded monkey could make World of Warcraft the game it's supposed to be in a year. Sadly, it will continue to be lame and gay. Oh my god. This is how we started. This is where we're at. I don't know what to say, guys, but that's it. Can Metzen fix it? I don't know, but he's really got a long road ahead of him. I'm going to tell you that. And I don't even know what the fuck to say about this. Oh my god. Google LinkedIn? I'm not going to Google some fucking idiot's LinkedIn. I'm sure that there's a million woke, annoying, obnoxious people that work at Blizzard. I don't need to look at LinkedIn. All I need to do is look at what they're making, and I know that. As used to always, like, I met Heel versus Babyface whenever he made WoW only videos, and now he says the actual fuck is this shit, bro. Like, I haven't subbed in years. I play on a private server. So cool how every game is bad now as black lesbians. Bro, people are just tired of this fucking shit, man. This whole cutscene looks like when people would make the Sims 2 music videos on YouTube 2010. That is an insult. This was made by some teenager 2008, okay? Yeah, keep this in mind. Some fucking little ass kid made this in 2008 with a toaster. This guy made this on a CRT monitor with 4:3 resolution. Okay? This video is from WoW. That's right, guys. It was McConnell. How much do you want to bet McConnell watched this? $1 million, at least. There you go.
Understand. For Erythor! The Red Dawn.
It's actually worse than a fan-made video from 2008. This is so fucking pathetic. I don't even know what to say. Oh my God. Why is she just standing there? This is pathetic. People ask me, oh, why aren't you playing WoW? Why aren't you playing WoW? Because this game is cringe. It's so fucking lame, bro. Oh my God. Will you answer World of Warcraft? No, I don't think I'm gonna have time for it, bro. Like, yeah, I just don't have I got a feeling it's not gonna happen. Talentless freaks are creating stories for us. No, they're not creating stories for us. They're putting themselves in stories for us, which, trust me, is even worse. And so, yep, there we go, guys. That is World of Warcraft in the year 2025. This game is a humiliation ritual. I don't even know what to say. And also, by the way, yes, you're right. Just for old time's sake, this is another 4 years ago, literal 4 years ago, fan-made video.
We're gonna open a jar. Easy. Now you try. First, get a jar. Patrick, that's
The Ashbringer. Yes.
This is made by a random guy. Yeah. Yeah. Just a random guy who just put this together. Just keep in mind the video. Look at the graphics. They're absolutely terrible. And nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It's about the soul, the energy, the spirit. The aura. It gets better. Yep. Yep. From that day onwards, he was known as Patrick the Pure and spent the last of his life purifying the land.
You need a jar.
And for
pathetic bunch of garbage. Oh my God. What the hell is going on? What the fuck happened? This is insane, man. I think you guys just grew up. No, bro, the problem is that we had people that think they're grown-ups that want to write these annoying, boring PR, HR stories, and they don't know about the real quality. They don't know about that real shit. They're into this garbage. That's the problem, is you got people, you got millennials in here. How much you want to bet the person that wrote this story is a fucking millennial? $1 million, probably $100 million. It's a millennial that put this shit together. Absolutely, a Disney adult. Yeah, that's the problem. That's where we're at. And so anyway, and somebody even tags me, it's never coming back, is it? Oh my God. That's a fucking fact, right? Watch Varian in the Undercity. Guys, there's a million cinematics we could watch. I just wanted to show that one. Started from here, and now we're at the bottom. Actually, that's not true. The next patch could be even worse. So yeah, guys, I figured I'd show you guys that because this is where we're at right now. This is World of Warcraft, in case anybody was thinking about playing the game again. Just a little inoculation there about you know, what you want to avoid. And so there you go. And it was Millennial Soy Boy wanting good boy points from his Discord kitten. Yeah, and it turned into a Discord hog. That's the problem. And so anyway, let's go back. I can find a few more of these, like Khadgar in a fucking wheelchair. Jesus, this game is so fucking cringe now. It's embarrassing.
This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thanks for getting me to 500,000 subs, which honestly, I have no idea what to say. I mean, thank you. I have it on record saying that I never thought I'd ever get to 100,000 subs and that I felt like I was peaking back then. Now I'm at 500,000 and I need a paper bag to help me write my scripts. So just thank you so much. But in the time between having 0 subs and having more subscribers than the population of Malta, I've had a lot of people ask me what I look for in a film score, like what I would qualify as a quote-unquote good film score. And to be honest, it's a really tough question to explain without a really good example. So what I'd like to show you is the music in the Matrix films. Composed by Don Davis, whose writing credits include, but are not limited to, Turbulence 2, Fear of Flying, House on Haunted Hill, and Jurassic Park 3, and subsequently analyzed in a doctoral dissertation by Christopher Heckman back in 2018, the Matrix trilogy is kind of my go-to example for a film score that I think is doing it right. And although I've seen some other videos out there talking about the Matrix and even talking about some of the music, I haven't found anybody going into what makes the music in these films so amazing. So hold on to your hats, because this rabbit hole goes deep. Part 1, Leitmotifs. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, I've been staring at my computer screen for a couple hours now, and I'm 3 cups of coffee into trying to figure out how the hell I'm gonna start this, because it's really, really complicated. Okay, so like, because it's me, and it's my shtick, and it's gotten me this far, I think that the leitmotifs, or the musical themes of the film, are a good place to start. But the thing is that just looking at the melodies, like the theme music, or whatever you want to call it, like we might do with another film, to be honest, that's some Weenie Hut Jr. stuff compared to what the Matrix has to offer. Like, yeah, there is this main idea for the Matrix, and Agent Smith gets a leitmotif, and Trinity gets this love theme. There's some music for when Neo flies, there's one for Squiddies, but trying to say that just looking at the melody is missing the point is like trying to say that Henry Cavill wearing leather pants in The Witcher made it difficult to focus. It's a massive understatement. Like, okay, if we have to start somewhere, then just look right here. This is Trinity's theme. It also doubles as Neo and Trinity's love theme, which, like, let's just sidestep how awkward it is that her sole purpose is to, like, fall in love with Neo and die. Like, I get it. Her name is Trinity. She brings the Trinity together, but eh. So pay attention to what we get. The first time they really talk to each other, we hear this.
Because you have been down there, Neo. You know that road.
Okay, and that's barely noticeable. It's so quiet and subtle. But listen to what happens every time we hear it. It's awkward to just play it back to back, but see if you can pick up on what's happening.
One more chance to say what I really wanted to say.
With each continuous statement of the love theme, or Trinity's theme, whatever you want to call it, it grows, we get more development, we hear more of it. This climaxes during Trinity's death scene. Its final statement is when it's the most complete. This theme is something that Davis built from the very beginning to grow and develop. He purposefully left their love theme open-ended so it could grow over 3 films, just like their relationship. It isn't just some static thing, it grows over time. It's this organic, breathing thing in the world of the Matrix. Their love theme develops as their relationship develops. So that's cool, but it's barely scratching the surface. Part 2, Instrumentation. So while using instruments to represent certain characters or themes in a story isn't exactly groundbreaking, see Peter and the Wolf, it's really important to understand how Davis uses instrumentation to amplify the story. On top of utilizing all kinds of crazy instruments like bowed nylon string or styrofoam cup and a prepared piano and the aluminophone, which I didn't even know existed, along with a bunch of really out there auxiliary percussion instruments, Davis layers a lot of metallic percussion instruments on top of each other to create these intense percussive moments that emulate the lumbering, oppressive machine that has taken over the world.
You're going to tell me, or you're going to die.
Davis calls these punctuating percussive moments pile drivers. But to contrast those metallic and dredge-like sounds that might sound alien to most general audiences, Davis uses the most human sound imaginable to represent the human struggle, the voice. Every time you hear a voice, it's a call for humanity. It's the humans fighting back against the machine.
We are grown.
A really great example of this is when Neo gets unplugged from the Matrix. We hear individual voices when he sees the other pods, but we hear a massive choir when he sees the entire power plant. Those human voices serve as an instrumental leitmotif for humanity's fight throughout the entire series, which helps make the final scene of the final film that much more amazing. This track, titled Neodämmerung, is a reference to Wagner's Götterdämmerung, or the Twilight of the Gods, which was the end of Wagner's Ring cycle, which ended in the exact same way the Matrix trilogy ends, with the cycle repeating itself, ergo the Ring cycle. It's Neo's Twilight, Neodämmerung, as the Matrix resets itself. On top of that, this piece is written in Sanskrit, which, when it comes to films ending with an epic choral piece with lyrics written in Sanskrit, you kinda get the vibe that someone was listening to a lot of John Williams. But unlike Williams, who just picked random Sanskrit words because he thought they sounded good, which, Davis, on the other hand, specifically set text from the Pavamana mantra introduced in the Upanishads. Translated, the chorus is singing, "Lead us from untruth to truth, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality, peace, peace, peace." In the final battle where Neo has to defend all of humanity, pelted by rain that looks like code from the Matrix is falling all around him, it sounds like Neo has every human voice behind him in this fight, which, if that isn't the sickest thing you've ever heard, then I don't know what is. I absolutely love this piece of music, but, and I know I'm referencing the wrong film here, we need to go deeper. We aren't even close to the fun stuff. Part 3, Tonality. Okay, so here's where it's going to start to get kind of complicated if you aren't up on your music theory, so good luck, because this part really threw me for a loop when I first read it in Heckman's dissertation. If you're listening really crazy super closely, you'll notice that all the vocal lines are diatonic, while a lot of the non-vocal music tends to be chromatic. A great example of that, again, is when Neo gets unplugged from the Matrix. Bunch of chromaticism for the machines, but big D minor chord that's completely diatonic when we want to represent the humans. Now, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. What does diatonic and chromatic mean? Well, diatonic more or less means the notes that you find in a major scale. That doesn't literally mean A major, but any scale with this specific pattern. It's when you have a scale that has a half step, 2 whole steps, a half step, and 3 whole steps, in that order. If you end up using these notes and only these notes, then you're looking at something diatonic. Chromatic, on the other hand, is using all 12 notes in the octave. So a chromatic scale is literally playing all the notes, all half steps, that's chromatic. So if you mash the keyboard, that's chromatic, but if you play something in a key signature, then that's diatonic. Now, I can already see an army of theory nerds telling me that I'm wrong and that I'm missing certain details here and there, but the truth is that we have a lot to go through, and if you're hoping that I'm somehow going to be able to explain every single nuance of all the theory that goes into these films in a way that makes sense, then God have mercy on your soul. So, when Davis is using music that uses a diatonic scale, it represents humanity, but when he's using music that comes from the chromatic scale, it represents the machines. So when it comes to how Davis expresses the human versus machine conflict, it isn't just the instrumentation, but also the tonality, or the diatonic versus chromatic scales that he uses to communicate who's doing what or who's winning whatever's happening. So Trinity's leitmotif is very diatonic. This final statement is in, I think, C# minor. She's human, and this relationship is very human, and having a relationship is a very human thing to do, and it's solidly built within that diatonic framework. I just can't get enough of this theme. It's just, oh, it's just perfect. But listen to something that we get for the machines.
Marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI. AI.
It's very chromatic. It's a bunch of notes that don't really stick into one key signature at a time. You might not be able to pick out that it's specifically chromatic if your ear isn't up to snuff, but it still might sound more chaotic or dissonant as opposed to something more consonant like Trinity's theme. But the best demonstration of all that chromaticism that we get from the machines is Agent Smith's leitmotif. See, it uses 3 notes, all half steps apart. See, look, if these notes were like this, a half step and a whole step apart, then it could be chromatic or diatonic. But by having these 3 notes all half steps apart, Agent Smith's leitmotif uses the smallest amount of information possible to secure itself in the chromatic scale. To be clear, Agent Smith's leitmotif is the most efficient way to communicate that he is with the machines while having no wasted information, just like a machine.
A sentinel for every man, woman, and child in Zion. That sounds exactly like the thinking of a machine to me.
Like I said, just trying to look at the melodies here is really missing the point. So what Davis does in general is that he uses these 2 scales to convey what's happening in the film with these minimalist techniques and textures. So like right here when Agent Smith shoots Neo and seems to have won, Davis layers every note in the octave on top of one another, so he ends up with this giant chord with all 12 notes from the chromatic scale. The machines have won, so they have every note from their scale all playing at once. But right here, when Neo defeats Smith, it's a very similar structure, but instead of layering notes from the chromatic scale, he layers all 7 notes from a diatonic scale. In this case, it's this D-Aeolian pyramid. Because Neo represents all of humanity, and he's the one winning the fight, so we get the complete human scale. But what that does is that it gives Davis a brand new technique for developing massive amounts of tension in the score in this really subtle and almost subconscious way. Here are 2 scenes that Heckman specifically draws attention to. Listen to what we get when the agents are interrogating Morpheus, and listen to what's happening when Trinity learns how to fly a helicopter.
Things. I feel saturated by it. Operator.
Tank, I need a pilot program for a beat.
In both of these instances, they're repeating figures that utilize major and minor seconds, or half steps and whole steps, in a way where they obfuscate whether we're in a diatonic or chromatic sonority. These repeating figures are built in a way where they sit right in between the humans and the machines. It's impossible to tell who's gonna win because the music is right in the middle. Where's the line between a human and a machine when you can upload data into someone's brain? Is Morpheus the human going to resist the agents, or is he gonna break down and become a part of the machine world? We don't know what's gonna happen or who's gonna win, and that's what the music emphasizes. But here's where things get really interesting. Part 4, polychords. So like I said, there's a specific leitmotif for the Matrix. This is the closest thing the Matrix gets to having a main theme or a main idea. For example, it plays all over the title screens. But this isn't really a theme, it's barely a motif, it's 2 chords being played on top of one another, one major, one minor. And when you play 2 chords on top of each other, it's called a polychord. Poly meaning many, a chord meaning, well, chord. If you don't know what a chord is, this video's totally got you lost. But what's so interesting about this major-minor polychord motif is that a major chord and a minor chord are always inversions of one another, which is a big deal because the Matrix has this recurring visual motif of reflections. Neo can see himself in the reflection of the window, while the rain looks like the code in the Matrix. Morpheus wears sunglasses that reflect the red and blue pills. When they start defeating agents, Trinity flies a helicopter into a mirrored skyscraper building, effectively destroying the reflection. And when Neo is pulled out of the Matrix, he literally contacts his image in a mirror. And this theme of reflection is more or less the entire discussion of the film series. What if who you thought you were, the image of yourself you see in the mirror, wasn't actually what you were? The reflection here is that there's the real version of you, and then there's the Matrix version of you, each a reflection of the other. So when we hear a major and minor chord played on top of one another, it's a musical exploration of the central theme of the film. Like, check it out. Let's use this handy dandy clock diagram. If you don't know what that is, I have a whole video on it. Go check it out. Okay, so look, this is E minor and this is C major. And when you play them on top of each other, you can see how they're symmetrical. They reflect onto one another. But the cool thing about a major and a minor chord is that any two chords where one is major and one is minor will always be symmetrical. So if we look at those E minor and C major chords again, Heckman explains that the main idea for the Matrix, this symmetrical polychord figure, mirrors the central theme of reflection. The chords are reflections of one another, just like Neo in the Matrix. But you ain't seen nothing yet. Part 5, polyrhythms. Polyrhythms, and when you play a bunch of different rhythms together. Poly means a lot, rhythm means I'm honestly probably going to fail that class. So whenever Neo mentions that he's the one, we get this leitmotif. The main melodic idea is triadic, which comes from the diatonic scale because Neo is the one, the savior of humanity. But the supporting structures appear in multiple different instances of duple and triple meter. Why? Because Neo is the one. He can literally perceive the world on multiple different levels. He is the savior of humanity that can see multiple levels of reality. We're hitting the point where looking at the written score starts to feel like we're looking at code from the Matrix.
There's way too much information to decode the Matrix. You get used to it. I don't even see the code.
But that isn't even close to what Davis does with polyrhythms. This scene where Neo's getting pulled from the Matrix, just buckle up. Okay, it starts with 8-note triplets against 16th notes. It's 3 against 4. Neo is in two realities, the Matrix and the real world, so there are two different rhythms going on at the same time. It's a polyrhythm. We then start this passage that shifts between 8th notes and 4/3 quadruplets because Neo is phasing in and out of these two different realities. Once the mirror starts traveling up his arm, we get a very similar pattern to Neo discovering that he's the one. He's getting 8s against 4/3 quadruplets and 16th notes. But as the trace program locks onto Neo's position, the different polyrhythms phase in and out of one another until Davis purposefully augments and diminuates. What the hell is the verb version of diminution? Oh, okay, diminutivizes, because sure, that's a word. Davis messes with the rhythms until they all come together because the trace signal has locked onto Neo's position. The polyrhythms and how Davis manipulates them are literally in sync with what's happening with the programs in the story as they find Neo's real-life body. And all this finishes with Neo's voice, the most human instrument, becoming digitized as he realizes his true self. Are you having fun yet? Huh? Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Because we aren't even close to the best part yet. Part 6, 7. There's a scene where Neo is standing under an overpass waiting for Morpheus when we hear this track. Now, I didn't confirm all this for myself, but I'm just trusting Heckman's word at this point because there have been multiple points where his dissertation has made me feel like I'm in the tunnel from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The score to this film is just unbelievable. Honestly, I've lost faith in a lot of people now that I know that this score exists and so few people are talking about it. So while not polyrhythmic, the ostinati or repeating figures in this scene are repeating in units of 7, with each instrument or motivic cell in canon each 7 times slower than the last. Every aspect of this specific musical moment works to preserve some permutation of the number 7. But why? Because apparently, and I quote, in numerology, the number 7 resonates with the energy of seeking answers and finding truth. This is the scene where Neo's going out and searching for the truth, seeking out Morpheus so he can get answers. So, 7. It's 7. Yup. But now here's where it gets really good. Part 7, serialism. So this is where I absolutely lost it. Okay, so that sounds like a lot of chaos, I get it. What we're hearing is a technique called serialism. So the idea with serialism is that you have to play every single note in the octave before you can repeat any note. No single note gets any emphasis whatsoever, which is exactly what Arnold Schoenberg, the creator of 12-tone technique, intended. He called this technique the emancipation of dissonance. When every single note has equal usage and emphasis, there is no consonance or dissonance. It's the musical equivalent of syndrome.
And when everyone's super... no one will be.
So the thing is that with serialism, the artistry and technique comes from how you utilize these patterns of notes or tone rows. If I have this tone row, I could play it upside down, which is called inversion. I could play it backwards, which is called retrograde, or I can play it backwards and upside down, which is called retrograde inversion. And each of these transformations can be transposed, which means I can move it up or down a certain number of notes. And so we represent these transformations with a P for prime, or the original tone row, I for inversion, R for retrograde, and RI for retrograde inversion. Then we put a little number next to it to show the transposition, or how many notes away from the original our new row has moved. So I could play my tone row upside down and backwards, 5 semitones above where it started, and we call that RI5. If you're lost, then good, it means you're human. This is as advanced as music theory gets before you start talking about set theory, Schenkerian analysis, and just straight up inventing your own tuning systems. But when you have all these permutations of a tone row, you can arrange them in this 12 by 12 grid that outlines everything that's going on. And we call this 12 by 12 grid that arranges all of our tone rows a matrix. And this pun is not beyond Heckman, who not only explains the pun, but also worked out the matrix for the Matrix. So this is what Davis used for the first film, and believe it or not, that's not the most impressive part about all this. So Heckman's dissertation only covers the first film, but in looking up what people had to say about The Matrix, I found this video by Wisecrack talking about why Reloaded, the second film, sucked. And it's really great, go check it out, because I can't cover all of what they go into right here. But the central thrust of it was that the first film was really good because it presented all of these philosophical ideas in a monomyth form. It's the hero's journey. Luke Skywalker, Spider-Man, Simba, Frodo, you get it. That stuff's been on the internet for years now. But that means that with Jesus powers, the second film ends up sucking because there's nowhere for Neo to go. So the way that they sidestep all that is by saying that Neo becoming the One and getting all the powers of the One is predetermined by the Matrix, because it's a part of how the Matrix resets itself. In short, Wisecrack goes into how this film is all about determinism, a philosophical idea that states that there really isn't any kind of free will. If you know what's happened in the past, you'll know what happens in the future.
Determinism loosely believes that through cause and effect, every moment in the future is dictated by a moment in the past. Think of it like watching dominoes fall. If you know which domino falls first, you can be certain which one falls next, and on and on and on until the end.
If you know where you are and what has happened in the past, then you'll know what's going to happen in the future. And this is how they justify a computer program being able to effectively predict the future. The Oracle can't actually see into the future, she just knows what's already happened and can therefore predict what's going to happen. She just connects the dots faster than anyone else. Her existence is proof of deterministic ideals. Once you set a series of events in motion, there's no stopping it, and so long as you pay attention, you'll know what's going to happen, which is exactly what happens in serialist compositions. As soon as you hear your first note, you can already predict that it's going to be one of the 4 permutations of your tone row: prime, inverted, retrograde, or retrograde inverted. So going back to the matrix Davis used for The Matrix outlined in Heckman's dissertation, if we hear an F sharp, for example, we know that we're either going to hear prime 2, inversion 2, retrograde 10, or retrograde inversion 6. And once you have your second note, you're basically guaranteed to know exactly what tone row you're looking at. So like if we saw a melodic line starting with an F sharp and then we heard an E, we would know that Davis is using inversion 2. It's kind of like Sudoku from hell. But that means that more or less, as soon as the music starts, you know what's going to happen. You know what tone row the composer has selected. It's just a matter of watching them play all the notes in order and figuring out why they chose that tone row.
How can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
Part 8, I can't even. I've barely touched on anything from this score, let alone the scores to the other 2 films. We haven't talked about basically any of the harmonic devices, the use of the death theme, or how Davis uses D minor, his use of brass to symbolize heroism, the octatonic scale, or literally any of the electronic instruments, all of which is clearly and concisely explained in Heckman's dissertation. It's at the top of the description for this video. Please go and give it a click. There's just so much going on here. I'm honestly at a loss for words. And before I see a bunch of people in the comment section saying things like, oh, just because it's complicated doesn't automatically make it better. Sure, I get that. But the thing is that by utilizing all these theory structures that are way outside what you might see in a traditional Williams or Zimmer-esque film score, Davis has offered himself a wider range and more dynamic palette to paint with when it comes to the music in these films. The sad moments become sadder. The action scenes become more bombastic. Those moments of tension communicate so much more than just how tense that scene is. The thing I absolutely love about this film score is how much it pushes the boundaries of what music can accomplish in a film. A film, mind you, that gave the internet the best fart joke of all time.
You think that's air you're breathing now?
And the fact that this score didn't win every award under the sun is keeping me up at night. It didn't even get nominated for Best Score. It won Best Sound and Best Sound Effects, but it wasn't even nominated for Best Score. Having said that, all 3 films won the BMI Film Music Award, so I guess that's something. But in a weird way, not winning all the musical awards on the planet kind of makes me feel a little bit more excited about analyzing film scores. I'm not entirely sure how something this amazing flew under the radar for so long, and I guess I'm guilty as well. I never thought to revisit The Matrix and break it down. I have a difficult time transcribing film scores nowadays because I have deadlines to to me. And if I don't really have some evidence that a score does something that I can talk about in a video, I can't always justify spending a week transcribing a film for myself. So if it wasn't for Heckman's dissertation, I never would have found one of my favorite film scores. I can't imagine how frustrated someone like Davis must feel putting all this work into a film and not even getting nominated. Hell, not even being a household name like John Williams or Hans Zimmer. It feels unfair. But if all I ever get to do with my channel is try to act like a megaphone for people who put the hard work into both writing and analyzing music that really pushes the boundaries of how music can tell a story, well then all I have to say is, here's to 500,000. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. I'd like to thank my patrons for making these videos possible. The very special thank you to Alec Kulikowski, Alex Klinkert, Always Posh, Captain Casey, Christian, Clara Tan, Darren Almgren, Elise and Thomas Constantine, Google it, Hayden Elza. I want you to tell me if my fear is justified that no one will pay attention to me if I'm honest about my addiction to ice cream. Jacob Salas, Jordan Adams, Julian Dubois, Karen Rosenau, Kate J, Kim Coletta, Mike Wisnuck, Myth Ligdenic, I hope I'm saying that right, Myron John Tatarn, Nicholas Cohen, Noah Gray, Praylock, Rick Osborne, and Who Am I? Also, thanks to everybody who asked me to talk about The Matrix, or just who generally asked me about what I look for in a film score in general, I guess. If you like what you saw here, be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. Follow me on Twitter and Twitch to have your musical questions answered live, and if you really like what I'm doing, then consider supporting the channel on Patreon. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching. Neo Damarung is better than Duel of Fates, prove me wrong.
This video was sponsored by Raycon. Stick around at the end for a deal on these awesome wireless earbuds. I need to tell you something, and it might be controversial, okay? But let's step past this facade of pleasantry we put up every day. Let's take this video off easy mode, because I need to speak the truth. I like good graphics. I like them a lot. Phew. Feels good to say it out loud, because I'm in deep with this stuff. I watch Digital Foundry like all the time. I want to know exactly how the game's draw distance works. I want them to analyze every strand of Norman Reedus' greasy hair. I love to pretend I understand what it means when they drop sentences like,
rather just with the more or less 2D depth buffer generated from that geometry.
It's just fun, you know? To see how close to realistic games can push themselves. I'm even really into the not in-engine stuff, like I talked about in my FMVs video. I watch the cutscenes and ads made by Blur, not because I have any real attachment to the story or characters, but just because I like seeing how shiny and pretty we can make stuff. I like graphics. And if you're playing video games in the year of our Lord 2020, it's a pretty good time to like graphics. I mean, have you seen Death Stranding? Have you seen The Last of Us 2? Have you seen Red Dead Redemption, God of War, Spider-Man, Uncharted, Tomb Raider, Far Cry, Cyberpunk? On a very base level, it's cool to be living in such a tech arms race, and the developers really highlight this level of technical achievement. We get really close to everyone's face. We see goosebumps appear on Sam's arms. More often than not, these titles will come with a photo mode, letting you zoom in and out and take in all the split-second details that you might ordinarily miss. And then you get to post those details, and we can all bask in how cool it is that Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn has a uvula somehow. Another thing that I love to just bask in is these compilations made by people like Sunny Legend and Much118x on Twitter. Look how perfectly they match cut from game to game, a ceaseless montage of graphical powerhouses flowing from one to another like water, a never-ceasing stream of polygons and shaders, a mighty flood of the most expensive and prestigious works the medium has to offer. Being glib when I say I find these montages cool. I really do. But they are incredibly good at revealing how much of a look AAA gaming has. The clips just flow into each other so well. The aesthetic changes are so minute. These games share many other traits as well, one of which is that they're all flagships. These are the games that get shown off on the biggest stages, that lead press releases and advertising campaigns. For Sony and Microsoft, but like really Sony, these big, beautiful AAA releases are how they prove that their consoles are worth having, that their ecosystems are worth buying into. And because these games are so important to the identity and perception of a console, publishers will invest a lot of money into these things. And because publishers have invested a lot of money into these things, it's important that they drive sales and earn that money back. And what's proven to earn money back? Well, this isn't a hard and fast rule. There are definitely projects like Kingdom Hearts or Sea of Thieves that get big press and lots of attention without showing every pore in the character's skin. I mean, Nintendo exists. We are not starving for alternative styles. But if AAA has a look, it's not this. It's this. There's also an inherent level of prestige that looking like this brings. I feel like we're really susceptible to it, actually. For instance, the life and works of David Cage. That's not entirely fair. I like narrative experimentation a lot. I like bold swings. I like David Bowie. I won't say that all Quantic Dreams games have absolutely garbage tier storytelling only considered worthy of consideration and prestige because of their graphics. But I will say that about Detroit Become Human. This game is bad. This game is not good. This game is a 7-year-old's understanding of a civil rights movement and a 70-year-old's understanding of interactivity. It's hard to overstate how much it bungles its central metaphor. As Suriel Vasquez put it,
yeah, I think the world is worse because that game isn't it. I think it's so bad.
The thing about Detroit Become Human, though, is that it looks really good. Like, it looks really good. I mean, do you see how detailed the textures are here? Do you see how well the digital emotion is conveyed? And I genuinely don't want to condescend towards people who liked it.
Where's the remote? Is the remote over there?
What the hell? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
I got plenty of information.
It's not here.
I know that on our launch day,
Where is it?
which is our biggest sales day,
What the fuck is that?
that we're not even featured anywhere. I know on our launch day at this point, we're gonna do worse than all of them.
Part of it is about not trying to be professional. Like, a lot of people come into indie games trying to be like a big company. What those game companies do is create highly polished things that serve as large of an audience as possible. The way that you do that is by filing off all the bumps on something. If there's a sharp corner, you make sure that's not going to hurt anybody if they bump into it or whatever. That creation of this highly glossy commercial product is the opposite of making something personal.
I am determined to make video games, and I make video games because I can. I am very, very good at programming. I can still basically make something that expresses myself like a movie or something that I wrote. I can make that as a video game, and I have the full ability to do that.
Things that are personal have flaws, they have vulnerabilities.
I don't know, to me games are like the ultimate art form. It's just the ultimate media. I mean, it's the sum total of every expressive medium of all times made interactive. Like, how is that not? It's awesome. I want to be part of it. I want to have a say in what becomes of video games.
If you don't see a vulnerability in somebody, you're probably not relating with them on a very personal level. So it's the same with a game design.
My whole career has been me trying to find new ways to communicate with people, because I desperately want to communicate with people, but I don't want the messy interaction of having to make friends and talk to people, because I probably don't like them. You know, yeah, when you make games and you put stuff up online and people like your stuff, or if they don't like your stuff, either way they're going to give you some kind of feedback in some way, and you have like this conversation.
It's why a writer writes, I guess. You know, it's because they can. That's the most effective way they can express themselves, and a video game is the most effective way I can express myself.
You know, making it was about, let me take my deepest flaws and vulnerabilities and put them in the game, and let's see what happens.
The generation that indie game developers are coming from, and I'm part of this generation also, we're the first generation that grew up with video games, but not as an active purchasing choice.
Since I was part of that generation that grew up with it, I feel an ownership of it. You know, games are mine.
For anyone who grew up basically after 1975, 1980 or so, we were the first generation to grow up with our parents giving us games, and for us to grow up games as a natural and relevant part of our everyday existence.
So this is not like a weird kid activity for me. This is not like some strange, nerdy pastime. This has been a part of my life.
There's been a tendency over the past couple decades in mainstream games to make everything bigger, make everything more realistic, just to kind of amp up everything.
Big games have other goals. They want to entertain you. They want to get 10 million people playing at the same time. But indie games, it's like frequently one person who says, I want a game to be like this. I want a game to be about this special thing.
Independent games are any game that a small team or an individual creator worked on to their own vision, something that they just felt like making and coding and finishing.
The one major thing that made this possible is the rise of digital distribution. It used to be that retailers had a lot of power over every game creation company because that was the only avenue available to sell games. And so nobody was willing to start distributing games digitally because Walmart would get upset at them and they wouldn't take their products off the shelf and nothing would happen. But Valve changed that when they came out with Steam. They had no loyalties to retail, and so they just did it. And then after that, everybody else said, well, we have to compete with them. And there was kind of this whole flood of Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network and WiiWare that kind of followed suit with that. I think 2008 was the first year that indie games started to do really well. AudioSurf came out first on Steam, then it was Castle Crashers and Braid and World of Goo. Osmos did really well in 2009 and 2010. Then Limbo came out and kind of blew the records, and then Minecraft came out as well, and it actually came out much earlier, but then it really built up and blew those records away. And when we're talking about really well, we're talking about millions of dollars in revenue. So for teams of 200, millions of dollars doesn't really count very much, but for a team of 2, 3, 4 people, that's really significant money.
Hey everybody, welcome to Elder Speak, the official podcast of ElderGeek.com. With me as always, I've got Gavin from the news, and as special guests, I've got Edmund and Tommy from Team Meat, who are building Super Meat Boy.
All right, so with us today is Team Meat. Team Meat.
Everybody in the indie scene is raving about
Meat Boy's coming, Meat Boy's coming, Super Meat Boy's coming. It was just all over the place.
This is like our biggest interview of fall damage
You've been living under a rock for the last few months. Anticipated releases this fall.
It is looking amazing. I cannot wait to see the finished product.
I think we both talked about approaching Super Meat Boy in the way where, like, our goal was to make a game that our 13-year-old selves would be super huge fanboys over. I know for a fact that 13-year-old Edmund would hear about Meat Boy right now. He'd be following us on Twitter. He'd probably be that annoying kid that was like, hey, send me a build.
Yeah, I'm
my name's Super Meat Boy Fanboy.
Yeah, I've registered it, and I haven't even played the game yet.
Can you get me a demo? Come on.
It's like, shut up.
I'd totally be that, because this game is very me, and I think Tommy would say the same. And yeah, I want it to be one of those games that kids would go crazy for on the schoolyard and passionately argue that this game's better than this game. And
This is my room where I grew up as a child. But yeah, this is my room forever. This has been my room. I have a bunch of posters from like Nintendo Power way back in the day. Yeah, it's just this room is my childhood, and that's basically what Super Meat Boy is. It's mine and Edmund's childhood, but put into game form by seemingly adult males. So you know.
Super Meat Boy is an upcoming PC and console game based on a Flash game. This incredibly hard Flash game that was super, super popular.
It's a game that looks like it's going to be like traditional in a way. It's about platforming. It's about this kind of very well-known thing, but it's got a real distinct art style, and it's got a kind of a very quirky point of view.
Super Meat Boy is a retro sort of platformer where you play as a boy with no skin who's just meat, basically, and he's trying to rescue his girlfriend who's made of bandages from an evil doctor that's a fetus in a jar wearing a top hat and a monocle, wearing a tuxedo. During my whole development years, going through middle school and everything, it was just all, Mega Mans, Marios, Metroids, those older, very, very difficult games. All of these games, like every one of these games on this wall, F-Zero was hard, Mega Man was very, very difficult, Spy Hunter was stupidly difficult. In Super Meat Boy, we sort of get to do whatever we want. We don't have a publisher, we don't have investors, we don't answer to anybody. And a lot of that is shown in the game. Like, we get away with a lot of stuff. We can have Dr. Fetus shoot somebody a bird because he only has 3 fingers, so it's not technically his middle finger. We can put in any sort of humor or parody that we want. I mean, we have parodies of Street Fighter and Castlevania and Mega Man intros and Bubble Bobble.
So a lot of people want to know, is this game going to be substantial, or is it going to be all the quirk in the character?
I think a lot of people are thinking that it's going to be sort of along the same lines as like a Castle Crashers, something like that. In 2008, I think Castle Crashers and Braid were the 2 games that really made people look and go, oh, I can download games on my Xbox. And I think people are expecting this game to be the next big thing on XBLA.
As long as it comes out and it does something where I can, even if I even if it made me like 20 grand for the next 2 years or something, that would be enough to make the next game, just based on what I'm living off right now. And I'd have to do that because I'm not going to go work at EA. I'm not going to go work at Epic. You know, that sounds horrible. It sounds like hell to me. So it comes out and people don't like it, and people just trash it and hate it, and it has a Metacritic score of like 20, and everyone just thinks it's awful. Then it's like, it doesn't really make a difference, because even though it's a game that people are supposed to buy, it's not a game that I made for people. I made it for myself. You know, Ed and I made it as a reflection of ourselves, and we try to make it as fun and as accessible as possible. Whatever. If people want to buy Modern Warfare or Halo Reach, that's fine, because I think those games are shit. And if that's what people want, then people don't want the games that I make, because I don't make shit games. So.
If you follow indie games, even remotely, like Fez is probably one of the projects that you've been kind of like hearing about for a while, because it's been several years in development.
Fez will be memorable either for its impending release or for never coming out.
And the winner of the IGF Art Award is Fez.
So Fez wins an award at the IGF.
It was hardly finished when it won the award. It kind of won on the back of sort of a small tech demo.
In the clear blue sky, an awards ceremony.
I think within a week I saw it on every major gaming outlet online.
My name is Phil. I'm an independent game developer. It's mostly about this little 2D guy who lives in a 2D world, and then one day realizes that the world is actually 3D.
And all of a sudden, Phil, who is making this game on his own with a grant from the Canadian government, is some indie gaming rock star.
This is fucking awesome.
Phil is trying to walk around in a cubist painting with Fez. That's what Fez is. Your character is walking around a cubist painting. 2D sprite characters in a 3D rotating world, and at any one point you're only seeing one side of the world. And everybody is just clamoring, they just want to see the game. When do we get the game? When can we play the game?
There's been so much speculation about when, where, how, if ever this game is ever going to come out.
I'm working on it as hard as I can, all the time. It's like, what's taking so long? What the fuck are you doing, Phil? Like, I'm doing the best I can here. I don't hear people bitch about fucking Valve taking, well, no, they do bitch about Valve taking forever for episode 3, but not as much as Fez, and there's hundreds of people there. You know, Eco took 5 years to make. Red Dead Redemption, 1,000 people, 5 years. GTA 4, 1,000 people, 5 years. Nobody bitches about that. 1,000 people! There's 2 of us here. It's taking too long. Fuck off! Jesus fucking Christ! Like, it really gets to me. I guess, you know, that's the price you pay for being indie and being the one guy that people know is making the game, is that you open yourself to these kinds of personal attacks that I wasn't, I don't know. That's not something I was counting on when I was dreaming of becoming independent. It was not the army of assholes online to kind of, not ruin my life, but make it all that much more hard to enjoy. I mean, it's a complicated game also. It was ridiculously overambitious for like my first indie game. It's a classic mistake, and we didn't realize we were making it. We thought it was going to take a year. We thought it was going to be that game, a simple game, and then it became a completely different game a number of times.
C'est un tout petit cube que tu zoomes dedans, puis là, le cube il fait, tu sais, des genres de cubes, quelque chose dans ce genre-là qui zoome dedans, puis qui arrive tellement proche de la surface que ça devient un autre genre de plane. C'est pas Prime Time of Your Life. Oh yeah, ouais, c'est Prime Time of Your Life qui finit avec le.
So my name is Renaud. I've been programming Fez since the very beginning, like 3 years ago. And yeah, day to day is just coding stuff, implementing features, fixing bugs. what I do. There's a lot of personal pressure just to finish what you've been working on for so long, and then there's a lot of people that counts on it as being really awesome and really much bigger than we've ever shown, because every time we show something, we say, oh, that's nothing, that's just like a small part. You'll see how better it gets. The personal pressure is bigger to me than the outside world pressure is. Like, I really need to get this done.
This is like it's a learning experience. I mean, I've made games before, but I've never produced an entire game from A to Z for commercial release on a real platform, you know, with Microsoft before. I've never done that before. It's terrifying. It's really, really, really scary, especially when, I don't know, you lose funding or something like that. There's just no safety network there. There's nothing to fall back on. There's always a threat of the whole thing just falling apart any day now.
I mean, it was very difficult to make the game, but in some ways it was less difficult than what I had been doing in my life up till then. Having a lot of big ideas about what I wanted to do in games and not ever finishing anything that really had the impact that I wanted to have. I think as one ages and establishes a pattern of that, it becomes a little bit demoralizing, right? You start to look at things and say, maybe I'm never going to do these things with my life that I thought that I would. And then one day I said, you know what, I'm going to make something that I actually finish, and that became Braid. And you know, it took 3 years, but I finished it.
I think one of the biggest breakout games would have to be Braid. Braid's a really interesting game because I was surprised it was as successful as it is.
It was a big hit for the independent community, and it was one that generated a lot of money for Jonathan Blow.
You know, it's a very odd setting, and a lot of people aren't quite sure what it means.
Nobody had played a game that was like Braid, that did what Braid did with time before.
Really what made Braid work is that time, the time-changing mechanic, the rewind mechanic, obviously from a gameplay perspective was a lot of fun, but that it also had this metaphorical relevance as well.
It's telling this strange, out-of-order story, and it's a love story, and it's not something you normally see in a game.
It's about this little kind of preppy boy, I mean, he always looks like a preppy to me, who sort of has lost something and is sort of working through these memories that kind of change as he keeps playing.
Those two things, both the fictional world and then the game world mechanic, those two worked really hand in hand very, very well.
So Braid came out of the confluence of a couple of different ideas. I was on a mailing list with some friends. One of my friends said, you know, he was looking at Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, which was a game that came out in the early 2000s. And it had this ability to rewind, but it was limited. You know, you had a certain number of charges that you could use, and when you ran out of those, then if you got killed, you couldn't rewind anymore. You would just have to reload the game, which was this painful process. So one of my friends said, well, why not just do it like a VCR when you can rewind anytime you want? But nobody in that discussion actually tried it, right? And so I said, okay, I'm feeling inspired. Let me just start this idea for this game that I've been kicking around. And I spent about a week working on it, and I had a prototype that really is kind of amazing in that if you look at the prototype and then look at the final game, a lot of the ideas from the final game were actually in that prototype that were done in the first week. So I had 3 of the worlds with, I mean, not fully built out 3 of the worlds, but the game mechanics were there for rewinding, and then rewinding with things that were immune to rewind, and then about time and space being tied together so that time changes as you move. And I had a number of puzzles on each of those worlds, and a couple of them, probably half of them, are in the final game in recognizable form. It was very low effort on my part to do something that was very interesting within the system, and I was like, wow, So it started as a process of experimentation, but then it very quickly became a process of discovery. It's like if you're sitting on top of a gold mine, but you don't even really have to dig. It's like You just scoop some dirt aside, and there's like a little chunk of gold, and then you scoop some more dirt, and it's and the most laborious part of the process is actually picking up these heavy chunks of gold and like moving them. So that was an amazing design experience.
Most of the time, he's back in North Carolina at his house, working remotely, and I'm here working from my computer. The way this game has developed has been very different from other games that I've worked on. We kind of bounce ideas off each other, and not as much as like just gameplay ideas, but more jokes, like jokes that kind of get out of control and then push their way into the game. And
he says code, der.
My Adam's apple is not that big.
Yeah,
Stop.
but look. What if I put a knife in it?
No.
Look at that. Is it totally injected all the way in? See the needle, and then there's a hammer that hits the needle in deeper.
My whole life has been about trying to find where the boundaries are and see how far I can push them before I get in trouble. And that's what I'm doing now, and that's what's exciting to me. I just feel like if I'm not doing that, I'm bored. And if I'm bored, I'm not going to be creative. I make games that center around my life, things that I like, and the things that I think and say and do. I make games to express myself, I guess. It's hard for me to talk about Santa Cruz because I've never lived anywhere else. It's just normal. I mean, I grew up here. My mom was obsessed with the beach. So that was like always her dream, is to live in Santa Cruz. So that's where she forced us to live. I don't know, I grew up here. It was like a skate surf town. I never got into either. I stayed in the house and played video games and drew. Monsters. I only drew monsters. I drew weird shit. There's like a big giant drawing of a kid with a bunch of like weird, like a demon inside of him that's scratching to get out. In third grade, my teacher recommended that I be evaluated, psychologically evaluated, because she thought I was mentally disturbed. My mom said that no, he's just an artist, he likes to draw. And she said that's not art, that's a cry for help. But I mean, I basically grew up a lot with my grandma. I didn't get along with my stepdad, so whenever there was a problem, I would just go stay with my grandma, or we would all stay with my grandma. But my grandma was always extremely supportive, to the point of being very annoying to my mom and my sister. To her, I was the golden boy that could do anything, and she made me really feel like I could do anything. It was like when she said, "You're gonna be a success," it wasn't like she was just saying it. It was like a fact. Like that was gonna happen. Like that was that. Ether was kind of based around my niece. She kind of reminded me of me because she didn't really seem to like to play with other kids, and she liked to just do things by herself and explore by herself, and she was very imaginative, and she really liked monsters. So that whole thing like brought me back to when I was little, and I thought, how cool would it be to like make a game that could put other people inside my mind when I was like 5, 6, 7, and that was Ether. So this kid gets on the back of a monster, and the monster goes around in space, and he gets to explore all these other planets because he can't connect to anybody on Earth, so he goes to find other friends. But all these other planets are inhabited with these kind of weird or sad or nervous creatures. And he goes and tries to solve their problems. I mean, he solves the problems, but they don't become happy. And he keeps going around all these different planets, but each time he solves one of these problems, the Earth gets smaller. And then when he comes back to Earth, and it's so small that when he touches it, it breaks, and then he's kind of lost in space. And it was kind of just like the ideas of, it's really cool to be a creative kid, and it's cool to do all that stuff, but there's, of course, dangers of isolating and becoming obsessed with things and having phobias. And that was the whole thing, is like each of those planets was like a phobia of mine when I was little. And when I was little, before I'd go to bed, I would obsess about these things because I thought I'd be able to fix them, but in the end I would just make them worse. They wouldn't be fixed, but I would be so obsessed with them the next day that I go to school, I'd have stomach aches and I need to go home. A lot of the imagery and stuff that I pulled from, I'm still very, very, very happy with. To me, it speaks perfectly of how I felt when I was little. Like, when I play that game, that's exactly how I remember it feeling, and still very happy with it. And then shortly after that, my grandma passed away, and she had a box of my drawings that she saved when I was little, and that's when I found this picture that I had drawn of me in space, floating, and this is Edmund floating in space, and my friend too is space, or something like that. Space is my friend, and my friend too is me. I should break that out. But yeah, no, it was validating to find that box and see those things and be like, wow, like, this is just like the game.
I have a very precise story of the exact moment where it started. I was 4, it was Christmas 1998, and for Christmas I got a Nintendo Entertainment System with Mario, Zelda, and Tetris, which is like perfect. It's the trifecta of video game. Like, to this day, you can't really get a better 3 games together. It was clear at that moment that this is what I wanted to do in my life. I've known what I wanted to do in my life since I was 4, and there was never any doubt about it. I wanted to make games. What that entailed wasn't always clear. You know, you're 4, you want to make games. It just seems like, oh, you just come up with ideas and then you have a game. It's awesome. There she is. What a beaut. So this is the game that me and my dad made back in 1993. Based on art I would make in kid pics. He would take that and turn them into these simple find the object games. So I would come back from school every now and then, and there would be these new levels added to the game based on stuff I'd made in the days before. And at first they were just these really simple Where's Waldo-esque things. Where's the letter V? Oh, there it is. It's so completely abstract because it was all my art and it made no sense. Oh, Cybervision. This is the best one. This is a piece of software that I made for myself. It's the stupidest thing. It's just patterns that I made invert the colors really, really quickly to give them like a flicker. So you pick your pattern and then you pick the number of flashes you want, and then what you're supposed to do is stick your face in it and stare at it like so. For a long time. And I swear to God, you start to see stuff. Oh my God. Oh, what was wrong with me? This is still awesome.
So the way that I'm approaching design in this case really is kind of experiential, right? I'm thinking about when the player comes on the screen, what's going to be happening, right? You know, not quite in the same way that you think of it in a movie, but sort of, right? You have to put your mind in the viewpoint of the player and think about what's going to happen. And there's this excitement about ideas unfolding that I try to put into the game. You know, it's a stream of communication between the designer and the player. And the design of a level like this is it's sort of a dialogue, or at least a monologue, where it's like, hey, check this out, you know. Did you realize that you were going to have a problem coming up that ladder, right? Isn't it weird but cool that you can have so much of a problem just because this ladder is a little bit to the left. If it was over here or over here, you wouldn't have that problem, you know? And so that is the interesting part. That's the important part. It's not important that it's a tricky puzzle that takes some thinking to solve. I mean, that's a little bit cool, but you know, any puzzle game can give you puzzles that you have to think about and that are tricky to solve. But what any particular game can give you is details, is like interesting insights into particular situations. And I think that when a game realizes that and seizes that way of doing things and runs with it, it can do some really special things.
I'm very visual as a person. I like pretty things. I like aesthetics, and a big part of Fez is the aesthetic. Like that kind of pleasant blue sky, green grass, fresh air. Obviously, there's no air coming out of the game, but so like this is how art works in the game. I make these little strips for the four sides that you see in the game, the top and the bottom of every cube. And Renaud made a little Photoshop script that crops them one at a time and saves them numerically. And then I can feed them to the game, and the game takes these textures and like wraps them around a cube and projects this art on each side. And you see there's the different sides of the texture strip. Then I can take the cube and I can go like carve in details that you can barely see in the game. You only really feel them during the rotation. So I use the Tetris pattern a lot. And it's kind of a pain because I actually need to go in there and paint it and like reorient the tiles hand by hand. So like here I don't like that there's this big straight line. It's kind of awkward. I'm gonna make it a T shape. So I spent a lot of time doing this. I build these elaborate structures, and then eventually I spend like an afternoon going over everything. I guess I've been staring at it for too long because like I obsess over the tiniest details. Like one thing that happened is I never did pixel art before Fez, so I had to like learn. And then you do that for 3 years, and then by the end of 3 years, you're a lot better than you used to be. And all the art you did 2 years ago isn't as good as what you're producing right now, and there's a kind of a divide. So I had to like retouch a lot of old stuff. I do everything 3 times, and it takes me 3.5 years to make a video game.
Level design. So, the basic formulas of level design go. When you start out, you want to teach the player how to play. And you need to make sure that they understand every mechanic of the game. So, every level in the first chapter needs to have some example forcing the player to do something in order to beat the level that they will need further in the game. So, like there's a level, I think level 3, that is just a gap. And the only way to get over that gap is to hold down run and jump. You can't get it any other way. You can't just keep jumping around. You won't jump far enough. And that's to make sure that the player understands that in order to get over far gaps that you need to press and hold the run button and jump across it. It's simple. It sounds like a no-brainer, but it's something that usually in games it would just say, hold run to jump far. Most people will just skip the text and they will forget. Now, just in case somebody didn't play that level, a couple levels later I reiterate and I give them another section of a level that requires them to run and jump to make sure that they know how to do it, because it's important. Like all these mechanics are very important. And each level in the chapter is another level that pushes that. Like there's a level where you need to continuously jump up one wall because there's no other wall to jump to. That's me teaching the player that you can do this. And everybody in the world will see a problem and want to solve it. So if you see something where it's just a wall and you don't realize you can keep jumping up the wall, you're going to try it right away. And once you try it yourself, you've taught yourself, not only do you feel smart, like you've figured out something yourself, you also now for sure know how to do that from then on in the game. So all these levels of introduction they go through everything, and once you've basically cleared out all the things you can do with Meat Boy, then you start introducing new mechanics. And with Meat Boy, it's not like Mario, where lots of the Mario games introduce new mechanics in forms of suits that change Mario's properties. And that's something that I wanted to avoid, and I wanted to make it really, really pure. Meat Boy never gets better or gets a power-up. It's the levels that change the mechanics. So right away you introduce saws, and they're usually static saws that just spin in place, and you have to avoid static saws. Then later, those same saws that you know how that they kill you and they know that they're round, those same saws then will start moving back and forth. So you got moving saws. And then, even later than that, you'll get these saws that are on these little spinners that act like windmills, and they go around in a circle. Now it's the same saw that you've jumped over a million times before, but it's coming at you in a different way. And it's just expanding on the basic mechanic and making it different and more enjoyable each time. As a designer, you want to explore each mechanic and make sure that it can be enjoyed at least 3 or 4 different ways. If it's only got one use and you can only get one use out of it, then it's pointless, because you need to be able to juice it. You gotta figure out new ways to use it.
It's become a bit of a reflection of me over time. It certainly wasn't the intention at first. I started noticing a few things that kind of reflect my experience of working on the game. It's a game about games, and the world is very much a computer world. It's a world within a computer, and there's a lot of computer logic to it. And every now and then the universe becomes unstable and has to kind of defragment itself and reboot. That's the goal of the game. In Fez is you're putting these pieces of the universe back together to try and make it stable again. I basically always feel like the entire world is falling apart around me these days. Here's a quick little recap of the last 2 years or so of what's been happening. So we moved in our first office. We had our telefilm grand, and that was great. Everything was kind of coming along, and then my dad was diagnosed with leukemia, and we were told he had a 50-50 chance of dying, like any weeks. He was like a test subject to this new kind of treatment. There's like, well, you're gonna die anyway, but you might want to give this crazy treatment a shot, and you might live. And so he lived. Shortly after that, my parents divorced, which it's never fun. I had to move my dad to a new apartment and all that. Shortly after that, my girlfriend left me about a year ago. Sometime after that, there started being a lot of tension between me and the guy who owned the other half of the company. And eventually he left. He left the company, and that was a big blow, because all of a sudden I had to take care of every single aspect of the company. Almost immediately after that, we lost our funding, and now we're here. We don't have any money. I'm overworked and overstressed about the business. I'm on the line. Me, like my name, my career. If this fails, I'm done. Like, I don't think I'll work in games again. And it's not just a game. Like, I'm so closely attached to it. It's me. Like, it's my ego. My perception of myself is at risk. This is my identity. It's Fez. I'm Guy making Fez. That's about it. If that doesn't work out, well then.
What would happen to you personally if you couldn't finish the game?
I would kill myself. I'm dead. I would kill myself. That's what that's like my incentive to finish it, is then I get to not kill myself.
I guess a typical day for me at this point in development is usually I wake up around 4:30 in the afternoon because I've gone to bed at like 9 or 10 or 11 the morning before. I check emails. There's usually something there from either one of the localization people or Kevin, our Microsoft guy, asking for this, or just any number of Microsoft-specific people just asking for different things. And I make my breakfast, which consists of a microwaved sandwich. It's pretty good. I take insulin for that, and then I just work on whatever's on the list. You know, I have a couple lists. They're mainly like I retire a list when I spill food on it usually, and these are actually surprisingly clean. This one is like, this was a big one. This one was code complete, but you can see like the grease stains where you can kind of see through it, and that's when I retired that one. Me and Ed are handling like a lot of stuff for two people, but we're right there at the end, so it's just, we just sort of do it. I mean, we're both very, very tired, but at the same time we're tired not so much from work, but from not being able to sleep because of thinking about work.
I'm like in a fucking concentration camp. Like, I'm not allowed out and I'm stuck. I have to work until it's done, and if it doesn't get done, I'm fucked. So that kind of, no pressure. If you can't get the work done, then the past 2 years are basically worth nothing. No pressure. We got a call from Kevin saying we're going to do this thing called the Game Feast, the Xbox promotion, like the fall of arcade, and he said if you want to get in, you have to have the game done in a month. We're like, whoa, because we weren't anywhere close to being ready at all. And he's like, do you think it's possible? And Tommy was just like, yeah, well, we'll just shoot for it, and if we miss it, we miss it, but if not, whatever. And he's like, well, if you miss it, we can't launch until February. Like, Tommy doesn't have any money, and we're running out of money, and it's just like, we have to do this now. Like, we have to do this. There were at least 5 times, a good 5 times, where I totally broke down, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I couldn't escape it anyway, so I would just go and I'd go into the bathtub, and we have a bathtub shower, and I would just turn on the hot water, and I'd lay down on my back, and I'd wait till the water went cold. That was all I had. That was like all I had to try to relax myself and not worry about anything. I was actually really worried that either Tommy or I would die in the process of making this. And I know Tommy even talked about it too, like, as long as he could finish this game, then he'd be okay with dying, because at least he finished the game. It was fucking weird. You fucking go crazy when you're like this. Yeah, well, I obviously grew this mustache. And it is the reclusive cowboy, so I need everybody to know how crazy I feel on the outside.
Edmund and I talk all the time about everything. We're best friends, but we were talking about if the game does well. He was reading some quotes about success. It was something like, the hardest part of success is finding people that will be happy for you, or something like that. I'm going to have 3 people I know for sure that are going to be happy for me. Forever, my parents have been supportive of whatever I wanted to do. They've done everything they could to just absolutely make sure that I'm all right. They've seen like some hard times, you know, with economy and stuff like that, you know, just kind of going down the tubes after our last president kind of messed everything up. But they were 4 years from paying off this house. This house that, I mean, my dad built this house. You know, my mom and my dad basically built the house. It was completed right before I was born, and they were 4 years from paying it off and had to refinance it. So I'm hoping if like a lot of people buy the game, I can slap a bow on the top of the roof for Christmas and say, here you go. This is what you get for being awesome parents my entire life.
So Meat Boy is a boy made of meat, but he's not like when designing him, it wasn't a thought of, hey, he's made of steak or whatever else. It was more, hey, he doesn't have skin. He's a boy without skin, so that's why they call him Meat Boy. So he's exposed to the elements. Maybe he's always in pain, but he just deals with it. But he has to be very careful with everything because anything could kill him. Like the smallest little thing, like salt or whatever, could totally destroy him. I wanted to have his girlfriend kind of be more than a love interest, and I wanted to play up the idea that he needs her, like that she's what completes him, like not just emotionally but physically as well, and that's why she's Bandage Girl. So she's kind of like the outer shell over Meat Boy that protects him, and that's why he needs her. He needs her back, not only because he loves her, but because that's what completes him.
The Seamus McNally Grand Prize in the open category goes to Chronic Logic for Gish.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'd like to take the opportunity to propose to my girlfriend, Danielle. Okay. I have to do it. Come on, guys. I have to actually say it. Danielle, will you marry me?
People probably don't know that he's an amazing husband. That's huge because he does all this stuff and he's still an awesome partner. The development process is long, a lot of work, and it's really hard to adapt for like our relationship to go from spending 24/7 together, eating meals together, leaving the house to not doing that at all.
I heard a lot of this, I only see your back. It was like, I know we're in the same room together, but I only see your back. Like we never are sitting and looking at each other. Quite a few times I'm like, I had to ask her, are you happy here? Is this worth it? Because I worry that this is just horribly boring for you and that, this might be something that you regret, getting into as well.
This is the lady I like. And this is a cat. This website, I think I'm going to go with this breeder. Since I have wanted one of these since I was in elementary school, just asked for it when the game's done, and we moved to a house if I could get a cat, and he said yes. And this is like my dream cat. It's like having a baby, except better.
You can't have another cat in this fucking house.
It'd be so warm, guppy. Oh my god.
Oh, that's the thing. It's fucking good. It's
available.
Winter is coming.
This one belongs to Jennifer and Robert. They're probably way happier than us right at this moment because they have the cat.
I sacrificed having a life. It's kind of weird. I don't go out. I don't really socialize. I can't really spend any money because I don't have any money right now, so I can't go out and if I were to go out on a date or something, I have no car to pick them up in. I have no way to buy meals or anything really. Well, I mean, I can purchase my own meals, but it's just the things you sacrifice are. Well, the things I've sacrificed have just been social. You kind of have to give up something to have something great in a way. I'm depressed now because I'm on the brink of something amazingly huge, but it's a different kind of depression. It's not a stuck depression. It's a, oh, holy shit depression. It's an unknown depression, which is kind of weird. But it'll fade because once it's out, and that's it.
I'm really, really curious to see what the basic reaction is, because
I'm really, really curious to see what the basic reaction is, because the only people I've showed the game so far were people close to me, like friends and family. And feedback so far has been really good, but I don't know if I can trust that feedback. I don't know if my friends would tell me that Fez sucked, knowing that I've spent most of my adult life on it. I don't know what I think of it anymore. I've been staring at it for so long. I can't tell. I really can't tell if it's good or not. Sometimes I manage to convince myself that it's good, and it's like, yeah, you did a good job, Phil. It's a pretty good game. But then I have like a flash of lucidity, and I'm like, but you can't trust yourself on this. Like, all you've been doing for 4 years is look at this, like this close. Like, you can't see anything else. You don't even see the mistakes in it anymore. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that kind of brutal honesty that we're gonna get from the average gamer. We're here for PAX. So PAX stands for Penny Arcade Expo. It's not for developers, it's for gamers. They're expecting something like 65,000 people. We're gonna be showing off Fez, a playable demo for the first time ever since IGF 2008, which was the unveiling of the game. We haven't showed it since in 4 years. So I'm a little bit nervous. But this is kind of like the big blowout, the kind of confirmation that yes, Fez is real. It exists, it's gonna come out, you'll be able to buy it one day, and you can actually play it today. Hopefully, interest will build up again until release, because I feel like over the years, people have stopped caring, because it's been so long. They maybe need to be reminded that we exist. And for the first time, I felt like this is Fez, this is the game that I wanted to make. There's a mood here that I've achieved. It's not done yet, we can't ship it yet, but it's really starting to feel like a game that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It remains to be seen if the game's gonna be good, or if it's gonna, work on every level. But yeah, I'm pretty damn happy with it today.
What's the worst case scenario for you?
None of this happens. We don't get to actually show the game at PAX or do anything about it for extremely complicated legal reasons. My former business partner, with whom I started Polytron, left the company about 6 months ago. And ever since, we've been in a kind of nasty divorce. And if everything isn't settled, we can't do anything. We can't show it. We can't be at PAX and show the game and release our new trailer and things like that. Just a final signature, this last signature to close the deal 100%. So at the moment, like we drove all the way here, we printed these banners, we designed this booth, I made a demo just for it. There is still a chance that I'm just gonna stay in my hotel room the whole time and not be able to do any of this. It's pretty stressful. It feels like waiting, like everything feels longer, and it feels like I'm about to throw up. It's stage fright. I had a hard time sleeping. I mean, I can't think of anything else. It's like constantly, running through my head. And it's such a big deal. Like it's such a big show. There's gonna be so many people. It's just I'm not in like a headspace right now where I want to be exposing myself and being a public figure and talking to people. So in my own little world, just working on Fez, trying to finish it. Like I don't do anything else. I don't, every other aspect of my life is suffering because I'm just trying to finish this fucking game. Because right now, it could go either way. Like it could be a nightmare. I don't know.
Oh man, hey, it's your boy Soulja Boy. Tell them they got this game, right? Oh no, this shit called Braid. Oh the fuck. Hey, watch this shit. It's about this little guy in a suit, and he look like Mario in the future, and he just walk around jumping shit. But what's the funny part about it? You can do this right here. Watch this. What do you do? How you do that? How you do that? You didn't catch that.
On release day, you start seeing the reactions of people on the internet. And for me, it was a very addictive thing, because here I've spent several years, working on this thing in isolation for the most part. And then suddenly it gets out and a lot of people, like tens of thousands of people, play it in the first few days. And you see that all over the internet. And for me, that was actually a very negative experience.
when Braid was coming out, when people would talk about it online, and this was sort of the birth of like, the really like serious birth of like blog commentary, of like lots of people in blogs writing actually pretty good stuff about what they were playing and what they thought of it. Every time you mentioned his name, he would like show up in your comments almost instantly. Like his Google Alerts, I don't even think he uses Google Alerts. I think he has something that's like better than Google Alerts. So he'd pop up and comment and reply to things or correct people on things, and became kind of famous for it. Penny Arcade has kind of cracked about it before.
I found that there was this perception of me on the internet that was running away very quickly from who I think I am, and that was kind of disturbing. And there didn't seem to be much that I could do about that. So that was actually a pretty negative experience, and I was actually seriously depressed for probably 3 or 4 months after Braid came out. You know, when you work a long time on something really intricate like that, there's a hope that people are going to understand, you know, the things that you did, and that you'll have some line of communication with your audience and things like that. And what some of the most demoralizing things were actually positive reviews of the game. The game would come out and people would say, oh, this game's great, you know, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, and they'd say what's good about the game. And in many cases, it would be just a very surface understanding of the game that didn't even see what I thought was most special about it. Not that many people understood. And that was a little bit heartbreaking in a way. It's like, oh, I visualized that I was going to have some kind of connection with people through this game. And they think it's great, but the connection isn't there because they're kind of living in a different world still. So they think it's great for some of the reasons that I do, but not for other.
And they ain't got no point to the game. You just walk around jumping on shit.
You know, they're not seeing the most important thing.
Today is Monday, and that's the embargo date. Do you know what an embargo is? Because I didn't, and I got in trouble for not knowing. An embargo, I guess, is you set a date when press can review your game. Okay, so 12 o'clock rolls around, and I start refreshing the Twitter mentions. You can search like who's talking about Super Meat Boy, and these reviews start just popping out. So I just start grabbing quotes and posting them, and so we've got a great experience, 4 out of 5, gamingtruth.com. Super Meat Boy revels in driving you crazy, but you end up crazy in love, 9 out of 10, Eurogamer. Brutal and hilarious, 5 out of 5, Console Arcade. I've never felt so challenged or rewarded in all my years that I've played with meat. I don't know who that is, but I posted it. All these reviews keep coming up, and every single time I'm thinking, I'm waiting for the really bad one. I'm waiting for the lowest review, like somebody's got to hate it. Super Meat Boy can stand confidently next to Mario and the rest of the platforming elite. It's the best game on Xbox Live Arcade. This game is wonderful, 10 out of 10. Very addicting. A love letter to everything that's great about video games. This is nothing short of greatness. How could you not pick this game up? Buy it now, 5 out of 5. And they just kept coming and kept coming. I did not expect this at all. I honestly did not expect these reviews. Get this game now, 10 out of 10, 4.5 out of 5, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. It's weird to be launching the same time as Fallout and be getting reviews that are almost better. Like, that's weird. It's especially a game that I'm going to be buying. It's pretty fucking awesome.
I don't know if you guys realize how frustrating it is. I don't think you understand what's weird about it. I don't care. I really don't care what any of the reviews say. It's just weird that they're there. Positive or negative. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that, you know, we get 9s and 10s and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but I've been weird all my life about stuff. It's kind of weird to have people say that, hey, you're going to be rich, you can buy me a car, blah, 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 just joking kind of stuff, but they're not joking. I mean, they're joking about me buying them a car. At least I hope they are, because I'm totally not going to buy anybody a car except my parents if they want one. But to hear that everything I've sort of dreamed about for years and years and years is going to basically come true in like 2 days and has already started to is very odd. I cry at the idea of crying about it, because that's weird. But I cried when we submitted the game to certification. I cried because it was like the equivalent of sending your kid off to school. And like, we just had to wait. We had to, like, we had worked on it so hard, and it's like, we were nonstop for like 2 months doing just ungodly amounts of work. And then we send it off to certification, and it's like, okay, we'll let you know in 2 weeks. And it's like, is it going to pass? Is it not going to pass? Am I going to have to fix this? And then when I would play the game, I'd see these bugs, and then I'd panic, and I'd email our producer, and I'd go, oh God, it doesn't, that was one of the things is like, oh God, it doesn't show PEGI rating if it's run in European region. Is that going to be a problem because it shows the ESRB? And they're like, oh no, it's fine. And it's like, oh, okay then.
I can't shake the idea that even though they're good reviews, that will still fail. And is that weird? Is it weird to feel that way? Because it feels normal to me, and I know it feels normal to Tommy, but there's still a part of me that says, even though we have the highest rated game in the past 2 years on Xbox Live, that we're still going to fail. Tommy, do you feel the same way? Like, there's still a part of me that worries that we could fail at this point, and even though...
Yeah, it is there. It's there. It's like it's a real thing. Only way I can see it failing is if like the first 1,000 people or whatever that download it, they hit the game save error, all of them, and they just bash the shit out of the game.
Yeah, well, those are different worries definitely for you. Like, I know that, people might lose their save, but they're still going to enjoy the game and keep playing, and we're going to fix it. So this is contacts to 578 people. I'll do that. Then I'll update the website. I'll update my blog, update my Facebook, and call it a night. What are you going to do, Tommy?
What happened? I just fell asleep.
Really?
Yeah. What did you say?
Nothing.
This morning when I got up, I got an email from Renault saying that my ex-associate was on his way to PAX to help with some other game he's working on. So he still hasn't signed. He's going to be on the road most of the day, and then he's going to be at the show. And I'm having a panic attack about this. I feel like I'm going to cry, throw up, and pass out all at once. My breathing is all weird. I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna fucking murder that guy, and it's gonna get everybody in trouble. We're gonna get kicked out of PAX or some kind of horrible disaster like that. I can't even begin to figure out how I'm gonna handle this. If he doesn't sign, we can't do the show. And he can. He's gonna do his own show, prevent me from doing my own. It's like, it starts today. The show is tomorrow morning. Like, we have one day to set everything up, and it's still not signed. And he's coming. He's gonna be there, and he's gonna come around and check out the game, and I'm gonna cold blood fucking murder him. I'm gonna fuck that guy, seriously. I have to set up the show while not even knowing, like building a booth at the show without even knowing if it's, you know, we're gonna have to fucking disassemble it. We're gonna have to take apart the Fez kiosk and put it away. Build it up, tear it down. Why? Why is he doing this? What's the point of this? It just doesn't make any sense. He should just fuck off, let me finish the game, not interfere in any way, because he stands to gain so much from this. If he just lets me do my work, he's gonna be a millionaire for nothing. He won't have done anything. He'll be a fucking millionaire because of me. And somehow he's trying to fucking sabotage that. He's trying to ruin that. Or just playing mind games? What is he, stupid or cruel, or both? It's too much. There's too much at stake, and I feel like this is just gonna end horribly for everybody involved.
Where's the remote? Is the remote over there? What the hell? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Where is it? It's not here. What the fuck is that? This is fucking bullshit. We're nothing. We are nothing to them. We're being fucked. They don't care. They so don't care. We have no... We have no placement on the marketplace, which is the entire point of doing the sale and doing this stupid promotion and fucking killing myself to get this game out in time.
What did they promise you?
We get a spot in front of Xbox like all the other shitty games do. But
How important is placement?
pretty fucking important. And this is it's like going to the store and having to ask to see if they have a game in the back because they don't have it on the shelf. You know how often people do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, go for a wild, wild ride with the Watusi. Big motor to see.
I'm not going to look at sales. No, I'm not going to look at sales. There's no point. There's no point in looking at sales because there's no way of me gauging how well it's doing within the first couple hours. So there's no point in me even downloading it and checking the leaderboards. It just would freak me out and make me all OCD, and I'd just constantly refresh it. I'll just wait for Microsoft to call.
That's how you do it.
First day is very, very important because it sort of, it's like a pace car.
So if you sell 20, 30,000 copies in the first day, well then you can expect it to just sort of staircase down. Now that we're going to start very, very low, it's going to be the same graph, but just at a much smaller scale, and there's just nothing we can do about it because the day's half over. We'll get half of what we had, you know. If people don't know how, if we have to get on Twitter and tell people how to find the game to buy it, that's awful. And especially since it's not, just go to Marketplace and we're right there. No, we have to say like a 5-step system of events or a series of commands to actually buy the game. And that's awful. That's dumb. So there's nothing we can do except blame Microsoft and then never ever work with them again. But then it's so dumb. I don't want to do games anymore, I don't think. I want to work on cars. I don't even want to work on cars. I don't want to do anything. Can I be a bum?
It's Friday. It's the first day of PAX. It's 7:20 something in the morning right now. The show opens at 9. Still no signature. It's scary. I really don't like it. Everybody's telling me just do it, and everything's set up, and it's not like I'm just gonna say no and stay in my hotel room. I'm gonna tag along and go to the convention center with everybody, and then I guess we're gonna do the show. Yeah, I guess I'm pretty nervous. Well, it's the first time we show the game since we first showed it.
Pre-success before you ever release is not a guarantee that, that the world will be there for you. And the worry